Hello, everybody. You have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Good day, folks. How are you today? We're here today to talk a bit about the Blood in the Rav 4 again. Now, as you know, some of you may know, I have already done a video regarding this Blood in the Rav 4, and if you want, there will be a link for it in the information below the video. For anybody who wants to go check it out as well. The thing is with this is that I've noticed that those who believe that Stephen and Brendan are guilty have recently been relying very heavily on the fact that, you know what, the fact of the matter is, it was Stephen's blood in the Rav 4, and that's it, case closed. No further thought needs to go into it at all because that's it, it's case closed. Well, with everything else that's fishy in this case, and I have plenty of videos about what's fishy in this case, and what's odd and just in certain cases bewildering, actually, but in all that stuff, where in this case does any solid ground get found? In my opinion, the closest that this case gets to solid ground is the fact that there is Stephen Avery's blood in that Rav 4. But when you think about it, it's not much. It's really not much at all. There's 2 drips by the rear passenger door, basically the door jamb. One that kind of fell inside onto the plastic, you know, where the molding around the door before it turns into carpet, so on that plastic molding, and one in the door jamb itself, in a spot where it wouldn't have been washed away by rain or hit by sunlight, and therefore damaged. So does it seem like somebody put it there on purpose? Because they didn't want it to get, they wanted to make sure it would get found? Because what on earth would Stephen have been doing by that door? Why would he have had that door open, working there, and dripping blood on that door jamb, and not by the passenger door itself, where there's blood smeared all over a CD case, and not by the not by the driver's door, where obviously he would have had to been driving it, and steering it, and all that stuff. So how the heck do we end up with 2 drips over there and no drips in the driver area? So these are the things that are odd about it, and when you think about it, it's really not that much. It almost seems like whoever the planter was, whoever this mysterious person, who I'm not going to speculate a name, but I'm just going to say that at this point in time, whoever this mysterious planter was only had a little tiny bit and was able to get 2 drops to drip there by the passenger door. But after that, it was such a tiny amount on whatever it was that they had, like some kind of surface that they had collected a tiny amount of blood on, and there was no longer enough there for them to try to get a drip out of it, but it was still kind of some. So maybe they take their Q-tip, they have a Q-tip there, and do the little squiggle by the ignition, because that's the way it looks like that thing got made. It looks like it's getting like it's running out of blood on the Q-tip at the end of it, kind of thing, because it gets thinner and there's like a dash, a spot where there's like not blood, and then another part where the blood kicked in again. So it looks weird, but it looks to me like they probably took that Q-tip and whatever it was that they had this blood collected on, piece of plastic, something, whatever it might have been, and just mashed that on the CD case and rubbed whatever they could left over onto that CD case. That's almost what it seems like, because when you think about it, there's just really not that much. Tiny amount. Yet he had this actively bleeding finger that, and I'll show you here in this video, you'll see when he cut this finger open, the way he really cut this finger open originally, working on the Grand Am, is he dripped it in there, and it was dripping, and there was blood on the shifter, there was blood dripped down on the middle console. I mean, it was dripping, and it wasn't tiny amounts. You know what I mean? It's not. He had 2 drops right there, real close to each other. Yet in the whole entire Rav 4, there's only 2 drops, and none of them are in the driver's area. So, anyways, we're gonna go ahead and move in right now. We'll move into the pictures. I'll show you the pictures of the Rav 4 and the blood in the Rav 4. I'll show you the pictures of the blood in the Grand Am, and I'll show you why I think it's so odd and strange that this blood in the Rav 4 looks the way it does. It's hard for me to say that it wasn't planted, because of it just seems odd. It's very odd. Anyways, We'll move into the pictures, and then we'll come on back and we'll talk about this some more. Okay, so these are the pictures of Stephen's blood in the RAV4. Now, up in the top right corner, you'll see what I'm talking about, the lone two drips. The two drips that are in this car, because there's no other places where the blood dripped, as it did here. That part on the dark blue, where that blood is, and that it ran a little, that's where, when the door is shut, no sun can shine on it, no water can get to it to wash it away. It's in a spot right there where it would be completely preserved. That's what makes that one particularly fishy to me. And it even runs a little bit. It has a little bit of a run, and then a little part at the end there that's dark, where the bead kind of stopped running. Then you have that one on the inside, whatever it is. Maybe they just were. Maybe that was an incidental drop that whoever was planting didn't mean to do. I say whoever. I don't know who it is, but I truly believe that the reason why we only have 2 drops is because they only had a tiny amount of blood to begin with, and they were only able to get those 2 drops. And the one that they got there in the door jamb where it would be protected was, their main way of making sure the evidence implicated Stephen Avery. So then you move on to that squiggle by the transmission. I mean, that's just crazy. You see where that cut is on Stephen's hand. That's just below the last knuckle. It's in between the middle knuckle and the knuckle on near the end of the finger. It's not that far away, and if it would be very hard for him to try to rub that up against that part where where that blood squiggle is. It would have been very hard for him to rub that up against there. And then it seems like they took this Q-tip and made that squiggle by the ignition, and then took whatever surface they had this tiny amount of blood on, and I mean, this is tiny, 2 drops and a couple smears. I mean, this is not a lot of blood that they got of Stephen. This is tiny amount. And then mashed it onto that CD case is what it seems like to me. It explains why there's no fingerprints, and it explains why there's such a tiny amount. And the fact that that one blood drop is put in a place where it's protected is just odd to me. Okay, so we're looking at Stephen's Grand Am. Now, you look right there, there's 2 drops, and then also up on the shifter right there's blood. That when Stephen opened up this cut originally, he was driving this car, and you can see that he was leaving blood on the shifter, and he was dripping it down on that middle console. That's how this thing was bleeding originally. That's if the theory is that it got reopened in the tussle with Teresa, then it would have been bleeding in a similar fashion, and he would have been leaving the blood in similar places, and it would have been dripping in similar places, but it didn't. And that's what I'm pointing out here. That's the whole point of me showing you the Grand Am here. So here we see the shifter in the RAV4, and you can obviously tell there's no blood left there. There was no blood left on the drips on the center console. So this is just yet another thing that makes the blood in the RAV4 questionable, makes it look strange and odd and frankly out of place. Alright, now the other thing that keeps getting brought up in conjunction with this topic is the fact, well, what they like to say is, oh yeah, they're making fun of Zellner, and they're saying, oh yeah, Ninja Ryan, right? I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. It would not have taken a ninja to do what Zellner may have been suggesting, or whatever happened, whoever may have gone into that sink. Possibly, if that's how it happened. But the point is that to go and get blood out of that sink would not have required a ninja. All somebody would have had to do is put on some gloves, a fairly new pair of sneakers, and it's not like they had to jump a bunch of barbed wire fences and go through laser beams. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, this would not have required a ninja. So I don't know. I just have been kind of amused with them saying Ninja Ryan, because it just seems like they're being a little ridiculous. But the fact of the matter is that there is a tiny amount of blood in that RAV4 from Stephen, and it's just unconvincing to me. The fact that the drips fall in the rear passenger door jam, I mean, that's just a weird place for them to fall. And then we all know the squiggle is unconvincing to many. And like I said, it seems like they had a tiny bit left on whatever surface they had that tiny amount of blood, and they just smeared it onto that CD case. That's really what it seems like. So I'm not saying that Ryan was the one that did it. I'm not I'm not going that far as to say that right now. All I'm saying is that whoever it was, if it was Ryan, if it was Santa Claus, okay, the point is that all a person would need is just some new sneakers, some gloves, and a long sleeve shirt and a hat, just trying to make sure you don't leave anything behind of yourself when you go and do this thing. So that's really, like I said, this isn't like, like some kind of museum heist where the person had to like try to navigate laser beams to get at the big prize diamond in the middle of the, main hall of the museum. You know what I mean? It's just, that's not what was going on here. It's not like it was a big obstacle course, that would require ninja skills. Because, honestly, with the new findings brought in by Zellner's blood spatter expert about that blood spatter on the interior of the cargo door of the RAV4, that essentially illustrates that Teresa was murdered at the back of that RAV4, which essentially blows the prosecution's narrative theory out the window, which creates more problems for this case. And because that wasn't caught correctly, that wasn't analyzed correctly, it throws everything into question. The analyzing of everything goes into question, and the fact that this, like I said, adds to the fact that this blood doesn't look right. So with the prosecution's theory getting shot out really badly by Zellner's experts in a lot of ways, so many of the things that with this case are getting proven to be just not they don't work. They don't make sense. The narrative is flawed. It is very flawed. And the more flawed that it gets, the harder it gets to believe that blood in the RAV4 wasn't planted. And that whoever was doing this had a weapon that was a lot like a knife, some kind of, I'm sorry, not knife. It was a hammer, some type of blunt object that was casting off slightly larger drops of spatter than a knife would. So I'm gonna do an experiment. I'm gonna get some like pig's blood from a local butcher and kind of do a bit of a little blood spatter experiment, comparing the way that blood would fly off of a knife compared to a regular claw hammer, compared to like a single jack. Maybe do a comparison of those three so that people could understand what blood spatter analysts are getting into and what they're looking at when they start analyzing the way that blood, appears on surfaces. So we're going to go ahead and be able to see that eventually, what the different size of drops and spatter you get with different instruments. So, but that's basically what I'm getting at. That's basically all I'm having to say here today, is that using the fact that Stephen's blood is in the RAV4 is as a reason that he's totally and completely guilty doesn't work, because as I've pointed out here today, it's just really suspicious. It doesn't make sense the way it looks. The way it looks makes no damn sense. How and what was he doing to end up leaving blood where he left it? Why was he even touching the CD case? Why, instead of having blood around where you turn the key, which would have made a hell of a lot more sense, where the blood from that finger would have gotten right there on that surface, right where he was turning the key, that would have made not 2 inches away on another surface that's literally almost 2 or 3 inches away from that ignition. It just doesn't make sense. The fact that it doesn't make sense, and then along with all the other things in this case that do not line up and do not make sense, these things all come together and make it all suspicious. And that is all I'm getting at. That, the fact is that right now, Stephen Avery's blood with his DNA was found in that RAV4, but I truly believe it's going to be found out exactly how that happened, because I do not believe that Stephen was actively bleeding in that RAV4. I don't believe he was anywhere near it. I believe he was actively bleeding in his Grand Am. That I do believe. But I do not believe that he was bleeding in Teresa's RAV4. But we'll have to wait for, time to pass and for more facts to come out and for more, detective work to be done. So that's about it for today, folks. Well, I'll also leave the video for the blood spatter expert down below in the information if you guys want to check in and look at what Zellner had, what she had the blood spatter expert looking into. I'll leave that link below for you. And have a nice day, and if you haven't already, please hit subscribe.